So as I make dinner for tonight, we're making a goulash. I'm going to just document how I create everyday alchemy out of the everyday things that I do, how I create magic. And this is how I've healed myself, because I came to the realization that the way, if we consider the essentials for life, the way we figure out what is the most essential is we figure out what it is that we can't live without. Now, the first thing is obviously breath. We can't go 90 seconds without breath. We can go a long time without food. Water is also nice, but everything can actually be transmuted through the breath and absorbed into the body, because on a quantum level, everything is connected. And so when everything is connected, the one thing that influences magic the most is choice. The intentions of the heart, our presence. We cannot escape the frequency of how we feel. And so mindfully choosing how we feel and where our mind focuses as we cut up the food puts the intention into the food. Now, we just naturally are a culture of consumers. Capitalism's kind of made that, and I'm just going to stay out of that for now. Not my intention with this. But everything we interact with, our free will is the frequency and the feeling that we hold. The intention behind it, the intention that animates us. And with that, because we consume food, because we need to be consider how we feel about the people we consume food around. The intentions that we put in as we cook food for our families. The intention as to why we cook dinner. Are we doing it for comforting our body, our mind? Is it for healing? Is it for fun and enjoyment and recreation, recreating life? It's a basic fuel for our physical body, but we cannot also deny that there is an emotional component to food. I've sat there for hours watching short form media about people eating food from around the world. And I love food from around the world. So in my curiosities of other cultures and other foods, I've come to the realization that praying over food, as I've done for the first 30 years, extremely dedicatedly, we're going to have to do all of them. That's beautiful. So we can also just slide them into the bin. Should we do the orange one? Is it deep enough? It makes me happy, that one. I think that's the best one to use.
Is it big enough?
Yeah. I'm just gonna... This is an off-shop find. It's one of my most favorite things to cook in. It's so heavy because it's cast iron, and it probably needs a little bit of extra love. But this literally brings me joy. If you look at the color of it, it's the color of the sacral chakra. And it's moving into the yellow, which is the solar plexus. And so as I'm feeding my body, there's an element of the ego that also we need to heat it up before we put the onion in. There's an element of the ego that also gets fed, the identity, and the solar plexus is sort of where that little soul identity comes through. So finding things to cook with that make you happy and bring you joy, and aesthetically is a thing too. It's also a thing. But if you have a look at the construction, I'm not perfect. And absolutely you can know too much about the health of all of the components of what you put in. Sometimes you can know too much. That leads to major anxiety. I know, I've got to get a move on, don't I? That's clean? Oil, thank you. Is that on midway? Yep, that's perfect. So having the time to presence with your intention of why you're cooking, how you're feeling when you cook. We'll just wait for it to get hot, shall we? Or should we just, we can just put it, okay. I won't put that stand on just yet, I'll finish the video. When we presence what we put into our food by way of where we get it and all of that, we can know too much and it can lead to overwhelm and exhaustion. And especially when you're going through, you know, limited financial resources, or if it's really difficult to source a sort of thing, a certain type of a food or something where you are. Like the intention, there's studies that have shown that when you pray over your food, it changes it. And if you consider that the entire process you can be present to, and present to your feeling as it's all happening, and look, we're human, we're not going to be able to be present all the time. But if we can, as often as possible, in the only time that ever exists, which is now, if we can presence what we do, and just catch ourselves and not guilt ourselves for not presencing it sooner, celebrating that we recognize. Acknowledgement is 90% of change. Acknowledging that we don't know. Acknowledging the curiosity, like I wonder what it could be. If we constantly know everything and we constantly know what the best thing for us is, why do you think there's resistance? I am very open to holding space for resistance because I do believe that there's a soul initiation where people have to make a conscious choice over what animates their body. What is the thought that gets you out of bed? What is that thought? What is that thought that makes you choose to go to work even though you're feeling anxious? It's freq. What is that thought that goes, oh, you know, I know I said I wouldn't do this thing, but I might just do it again today. And perhaps it might actually be us, this soul element of us that is defying what we think we should be doing for ourselves, and it's not just divinely animated. Because eventually you get so bored and so out of dopamine hit type things that you eventually just give in. And it becomes easier to take the action that felt like the hardest thing in the world. That 5-minute task that's taken you 18 months. Oh, hey, I'm just on, like, recording a video, just FYI. If that was him, I don't know. Toilet, nice. We're all humans. In one end, out the other.
You went to the toilet.
That's fine.
That's what
I still think it's good that I warn him.
That's good.
I'd rather offer people a consent into my world. I won't just assume it.
Yep.
This is so much onion. Oh my gosh, my eyes are gonna cry. So the rule kind of for me has been, I'm doing the best that I can. And when I create space for myself to be imperfect in different ways, I'll do this one if you want to salt it and that sort of thing. You are a legend. Oh my gosh, I am so grateful. When we allow space, and this is why this is why life has naturally brought to my attention coercive control. And this is why I have these feelings of, you know, it's a spiritual type of an abuse. Like, it's hard. It's like the individual struggles with decision after that. And if that is foundational to life, and building a life which we, on our deathbeds, can look back and just be so entirely satisfied with and grateful for. And it's not that we've accomplished everything, but it's the way we've lived life. And the way that we do that is to be satisfied now. Like, oh, that song from Hamilton, it just hit me when I heard it. And, you know, you will never be satisfied. And the beauty is within the expansion and the satisfied in whatever the expansion looks for you in that day, because you are constantly expanding, and you might feel like you're contracting, and maybe contracting on the outside, isolating, creating space from people, staying away from people, not listening to advice. That is on the hero's journey, the death of the mentor. Oh, sorry, shivers. This is the aspect where the soul chooses life. This might look like suicidal ideation. And perhaps self-harm is actually this soul trying to struggle to feel a will to live. Or the pain is so much easier than the real feeling that is right there, because it's under your skin and it's in your heart and it's in your mind, and you can't take anything. You cannot take anything that gets rid of it. You can avoid as much as you want, but it is there and you can't deny it. And therein is your freedom. We look at that beast. We look at that shadow. We turn our light to it. Our attention and our love. We open a space for it and we say, hey, if you are willing, I am here. And I'll keep my distance a little until I feel the safety. I feel understanding. I'm not going to force myself into these actions before this soul feels ready. And if you have been so violated in your life and mentally violated, like, you know what that means. It's not something that's found within words. It's a human experience, and it is the human experience that we learn from the most. That's how we start to connect human to human on a heart level. That's how we start to communicate beyond words. It's the tiniest little twinge in an eye that kind of gives you the hints and clues. And it's us and all of the social etiquettes that get in the way and skew the perception of the human experience. As children, we're born with mirror neurons. So we start to witness each other through what that external is showing us. A baby cries, and the other one starts crying. You laugh, and the baby laughs at your laugh. You start using language, and that baby is mimicking you. Mirror neurons. Their brain is firing so much, and this is why being in that state of openness and learning, you know, they absorb so much. And there's so much guilt in that, because we have this desire to do it perfect and have them avoid the pains that we've felt. And the truth is, we cannot. There is no such thing, and we create a hell for ourselves and them when we try and hold the standard of perfection. Before we even start looking at the ideals majorly socially, we have to look at the individual's ideals. Because beyond labels of all the neuro whatevers, all the diagnosis, beyond that is a human experience. And it is the one soul experience, a lone experience. And that is to be honored. Look, I'm cutting up onions. I am cutting up onions, and they're all over my hands, and I want to rub my hands because my eyes. Oh, let me just wash and honor my hands for a moment. We're still rolling. I can edit, but I probably won't. So if you're mindful of that, I'm just probably going to put it on my YouTube like this.
The onions are.
I'm preaching. She's in the kitchen preaching.
Did you want to stop?
No, because I'm still.
You just go.
We don't.
No, this is what you do. You
I
go.
don't know. Do you want to help me with that?
Probably not.
Okay,
What you
but
can do in
the part of my thing is also major transparency.
But
So
I'm also speaking about my eyes.
I understand. You don't have to be in this.
No.
And I'm just getting this out so that I'm not directing it at you. So meat, delicious. Oh my gosh. I've tried so many different diets, studying kinesiology and nutrition. I had to try them out myself. And so I've had intimate being obsessed with physical image because I thought that that was where my value was. I've tried to be skinny my whole life, and now I'm just embracing what it is that my body needs, which is definitely a sharper knife right now. And this is to say that the human experience cannot be held to a standard of perfection. It has to be in the only time that ever exists, which is in the here and now. And so even if you believe in multiple timelines and getting trapped on other timelines and whatever depth and breadth and flavor of spirituality that you have, and all of that's welcome, all of its analogy, it's an upside down world, even our language is back the front.
We just need a bigger pot.
Oh, that's
We're gonna
exciting.
need a bigger pot.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
You gotta
okay.
get a drink.
Do you mind pouring my nice one into a pretty glass for me?
Sure.
Thank you. Because I'm actually also open to people witnessing how I just am, and it's probably even nicer in real life. I mean, no, opposite. It's nicer online than sometimes in real life, hey. But then we have where as human experiences, we each have different human experiences at different times. Oh, I'd love that. And maybe just a slice of mint.
Sure.
And so opening up and allowing people to be human, and even ourselves. And then it's about repair from there. Acknowledge and then repair. Easy. That's learning. That's literally learning. And I guess that's all this is. I want to approach this channel not like an absolute professional, but like an experienced human. A what?
Washed or not?
What do you think?
Yes.
Actually, yeah, I did put some water that I had out that had been out for a couple of days in it that had some dirt. Didn't want to waste it, and it's good nutrients. Simpler and gentler has literally been my way of relearning, and I did do a podcast. I was going to create a podcast solely on this called Everyday Alchemy, and I only did one episode. I thought it was I had to try and figure out a brand from there and a name, so I just went with the name that my parents gave me. I know that they are people who are also inspired, and we all look through different lenses of things, and I have a lot of respect for those humans. I know what they went through. From my perspective, I wouldn't have wished that on anyone. And I can also acknowledge much of my natural health, my views on homeostasis came from my mum, and her approach to motherhood was honestly, I believe, noble. And you know, that's why the distance has been uncomfortable, but there's an element to it that I've needed to undo, and that is coercion. And I don't believe that they did it out of full maliciousness, but it was fear. And fear based on this, you know, religious coercion, which is the structure of most religions. And I guess that's what I'm here to unpack and discuss, partially discuss, because there's still a little bit of a, you know, death of the mentor going on for me. And I'm just integrating and opening more to community in that sense. And it has to be honest and heart aligned, and transparency, direct, respectful, transparent communication. I have to be able to ask and say anything, and be willing to also explain what it is that I mean, and choose not to as well. There needs to be new trust. Trust within ourselves first and foremost, and then trust with those around us. Transparency is paramount. It's the gateway to vulnerability. It's the way that we start to create trust. And then we can work together and make goulash. Just do it. Whatever you need to do. I trust your decision on this one. Thank you for letting me do this. Thank you to my beautiful son. I hope that this helps. I'm going to go and interact with him more now. See ya. You got this.